welcome back to the How to Podcast series. You know, when you meet somebody on Podmatch and you get these little match requests and things that happen on the site, it's so much fun. It's like meeting somebody new and you're so excited. It's like a dating service, but for podcasters. And I love it because Darren is here through Podmatch. And the beautiful thing is I'm here in Canada. Darren is not. And you're going to find out as soon as he starts talking. Darren's a great guy. He's got 2 podcasts. I've been listening to the first one. I'm working my way towards the second one. So excited to have him on the podcast. And that we connected through Podmatch. To Alex and your team over at Podmatch, thank you so much. Darren, welcome to the How to Podcast series as my guest co-host. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And big shout out to Podmatch as well. Awesome platform. And it's just a pleasure to be here and chat about podcasts.
Okay, you got to tell us, Darren, where are you in this big world of ours?
So as you can tell from my great accent, I'm down under in Sydney, Australia.
And it's tomorrow for me over there right now.
Yes, it is. So it's Tuesday morning, 8:30, 9 a.m.
So you can tell me what's going to happen in the future.
That's
this
right.
is so cool. I love it. I love it. Darren, tell us about your 2 different podcasts. What are you doing?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of fell into podcasting 6-7 years ago, and I've got 2 different podcasts because I do a few different things. So I work as an IT recruiter, and I have a great podcast that's specific to that industry, where I interview lots of people about working culture, looking for work, career development, all that kind of stuff. And then I have another podcast, which is more of a variety show. I call that my variety show. And that's the one that we're on. I'm kind of got the little logo in the background now. And that's called Playing with Perspective. And that's for my photography podcasting brand. And so I've got about 220 something episodes. We talk about all sorts of stuff, from real estate to book launches to acting to music to health sciences to entrepreneurship, business, you name it. We've done an episode on something. And that's just a lot of fun. I get to learn so much from my guests, get to meet some great people, and do a little bit of work teaching and coaching and training in the podcast space because I'm so passionate about it.
Oh, okay. So there we want to lean on that for a while. Darren, what are you doing in the podcast space to help podcasters? I'm on your website while we're chatting, so I'm going to lead you while we talk through this. But what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm kind of really trying to build a podcast training or coaching ecosystem. And so I want to hit it from all angles. So if people want to set up their own podcasts, I do a range of different courses, either recorded courses, one-on-one courses, bespoke training sessions, keynote speeches and workshops, all that kind of stuff around podcasting. But then I also want to help people that are getting on podcasts execute and optimize that opportunity better. Because I find that a lot of people come on my show and really can do so much more with that episode and with that experience, and they don't do enough. So I'm trying to help those people as well extract as much value as they can for their own purposes and their own branding. So I do a lot of work to coach and teach and do some webinars coming up very shortly about how to optimize and leverage your podcast experience as a guest, because I think there's a lot of work to be done in that space as well. So kind of like hitting 4 angles and just having some fun.
Okay, so let's do a little rapid fire thing back and forth and trade, because I've done a lot of interviews too, and I've got a few things I like to suggest to my community. So you present one, I'll present one. We're going to do back and forth here. Just a short little thing. What would you say to a person who wants to guest on a show? What kind of advice would you give them? Give them one and I'll do a response.
My biggest one would be to think about everything in terms of how you're going to leverage that opportunity for the future.
Okay. Mine is, it's not about you as the guest. It's not about the host. It's about the listener. Because without the listener, this is really no point to this.
Definitely. Yeah. The other one I would say as well is prepare. A lot of people don't prepare enough when they jump on the show.
I would say when you are talking about your book, your product, your service, your website, to not say on my website or in my book, but actually say the name of your website, say the name of your book, because there's a transcription, especially on YouTube, all those subtitles, and it says on my website. You much rather say the name of your website, because those are searchable words and people can find you just by saying the name of the thing. So say the name often.
Yep, definitely. Another one I would say is come up or leave with some kind of call to action or some kind of next step for the audience to go and learn more or give them, extract some value rather than just talk.
I would say listen to the show if you can before going on to get the feel of the show. Nice. I give this example, Taylor Swift. Obviously, we've all heard of Taylor Swift. If Taylor Swift had a podcast, she calls her community Swifties. So if you came on as a guest on the Taylor Swift podcast, which she doesn't have for some reason, and you came on as a guest, Darren, the first thing I would do if I was you coming on her show, I'd be like, hi, Taylor, so glad to be on your show. And to the Swifties that are listening, I am also a Swiftie, and I'm here with our amazing Taylor Swift. So I just want to say hi to all the Swifties. I self-identified with the audience as one of them. Now they're going to welcome me in because I know their secret code of what she calls her community. So pick up on those little things from another podcaster. It'll really help you to establish that connection.
Very cool. You kind of touched on culture and community there, which is really important. How
do we do more of that?
Yeah, how do we touch more on community and culture is really, I would also say research, as you say, research that really well. And also research the host and the show. Because, you might not resonate with a host or the aim of the host or the aim of the show. But some people resonate more with others, like we're resonating really well. We're just chatting, we have very similar energy. So a lot of people are a little bit more stiff and a little bit more, slick, and some people are just more natural and raw. So just resonate and find the host that works for you as well.
How do you feel, Darren, around giving your guests all of the questions in advance so they can prepare their answers before they come on your show? How do you feel about that?
I like that. And the reason I like that is, I won't say all of the questions, but I give them a framework that I like to take them through in the interview, because particularly when a guest can be a little bit new to the podcasting world, they might be a little bit nervous. And when people get nervous, they start talking really fast and they start going off on a million tangents. And then your episode can end up as a train wreck. So to avoid that, I like to give people a bit of a framework so they're prepared to a degree, but then I'll still obviously throw in some impromptu questions and go off on tangents and take what they've just said and go continue down that path. But then I can bring them back to their next question. So they have an idea as to what's going on. Otherwise you can scare people and they can just, the whole episode can be taken away and you can end up doing something totally different to what it says in the title.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I find if somebody's way too rehearsed is that it sometimes doesn't feel very organic, like a conversation. So a good example would be, I ask you a question, you answer the question, and I just look at my clipboard and go, okay, question number 2. Yeah. And it's like, it feels like, because I've heard people on podcasts give this amazing story, and at the end of their answer to the host, they say, oh, yeah, and that's the time my car broke down and I almost got in an accident and died.
Yep. And
the host goes, question number 2. You're like, wait. As a listener, I'm like, hang on, time out. I want to go back to the story. Can you? Oh, right. I want to know more about that. So I tell people when they come on my show that I really don't know the next question. I will give you the framework for sure. I want you to feel comfortable on my show 100%. But I can't guarantee that I'm going to stick with this because you might say something that makes me want to go, wait a minute. I want to know more about that. Now I've gone completely off my list. I might come back to it, but I'm following you. You're telling me some great stuff that my audience really wants to hear. So I want to follow the story and follow your message. So definitely, I kind of say it's a framework, but it's not, question by question. Yeah.
I agree with you. And that's kind of the job on the host as well, is to really make sure they pick up on that, is to not just verbatim go through question, answer, because then it becomes really boring. but to pick up on those cues and to explore and extrapolate and have some fun with that kind of stuff. Because, that's what you're there to do. You're there to draw out that great stuff from your guest. And if you don't do it, it's a wasted opportunity.
So going back to your early episodes of your podcast, Darren, how did you learn how to do all this?
Oh, well, the best one is to just listen to other people. Listening to lots of other people and thinking wow, that's a great way to say that, or that's a great lead in, that's a great intro. I love the way that as you continue to get more information, you summarize as you go and you move on. Like, you just learn all these things from other people. We're all learning from each other. As they say in the world of art or creativity, steal like an artist. We're all just learning from each other. And then you make it your own, and it becomes, your own spin on things. But listening to other people, learning from other people is the best way to do it. And then just trust yourself as well. Just, if things feel right for you, just go with it. Don't imitate other people. Just put your own spin on things.
Yeah. I had an author on my podcast yesterday, and she was so deep. Like, she was bringing out this amazing stories, and she was just overflowing with information. So fascinating to talk to. And at one point I stopped her. I'm like, you're really pulling from a deep well.
Wow.
From somewhere. I'm like, who dug your well?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she looked at me like, no one has ever asked me that question before.
Yeah.
Like, who dug my well? Like, who actually created this for me?
Yeah.
Right? And she just was like, I don't even know how to answer that. Right? So those kind of questions make people on their heels a little bit and make them think.
Definitely.
I leave those spots of silence and thoughtful pauses. I leave them in my podcast sometimes because I want the audience to feel like, wow, how would I answer that question? Right? So I leave them in there. So little things like that come up in the conversation.
And funny you should say that. Like, there's a lot of new technology out there now that take away the ums and ahs and the filler words, and you can almost overproduce things to the point of being sterile and robotic. So I don't like those things for the same reason. I like it to be raw. And if I say and ah, or if I take a pause, or if I think, or if I stumble, great, because I want it to be raw.
Yeah. I was explaining some of those tools to somebody else who was asking about them. And I said, they're great tools, but you got to know how they work. And don't just go to 100 if 100 is the maximum, because it's going to sound like somebody's running down a very steep hill, trying to have a conversation at the same time, because all the silence and all the breaks are taken away and really talking fast and you don't have a break and blah, 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 blah. And as a listener, you're like so anxious. It's like, take a breath, right? Because I want to breathe as a listener. I feel like I'm holding my breath.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just sometimes there's those breaks help. And I'm a musician, and I've always said that the beauty of music is in between the notes, not just the notes themselves. That gap between the notes, that's where music really lives. And when we speak, that space can mean so much for the listener and for the guest. So I like that space. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah. I'll have to ask you, what kind of work do you do? What kind of instruments do you play? What do you do?
I have 9 guitars,
oh my Lord.
Which is crazy. They're all over there piled up right now. I play guitar, bass, drums, and piano. So I've been doing that for 40 plus years.
Wow.
So that's how I got into podcasting.
Is that right?
Yeah, I have all the gear here to do music. And I listened to a podcast one day and I'm like, hang on. I already have everything here. I can just start. So that was my little advantage to getting started.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I've got a couple of guitars behind me as well, but I haven't used them in ages. That's a lot of fun. But again, you're right. There's a lot of synergy between music and the podcast space. And the other thing that I would say as well is, little tip for people out there in terms of guests, is just be aware of your rhythm and your cadence in how you speak. Pause every now and again. Like, give people a bit of space. Otherwise, people get so caught up in the environment and the excitement of the opportunity, they don't stop. And then sometimes I have to put my speed down to 0.8 or 0.75 because I say, whoa, you're giving me, my heart rate's going up here. I need to take a break. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah. I noticed too, like when my early days, I didn't do it as much as I do now, but I'll when it's time to say something like a website, I'll slow down and say the website because I want people to remember it. Little things like that. You really start getting better at this. And going back to the editing thing, if you go up on stage, you don't have somebody off stage editing out all your ums and ahs live in front of an audience. So the more you don't rely on that heavily, the better speaker you'll be in public, on stage in front of an audience, because you know how to self-edit and correct those things.
Agree.
So, right.
Yeah, that's all just muscle memory. It's all practice. It's all muscle memory. And that's part of fun of the whole podcasting journey as a host and as a guest.
Yeah. We're always learning. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. So what inspires you as a podcaster? Who are you looking up to? Who are you listening to? Kind of like I'd still like to find out how you continue to learn to do your show.
Yeah, wow, good question. I listen to loads of different podcasts. Every morning I'm listening to podcasts about dating, about business, about recruitment, about mindset, about finance. And I just draw from whatever I learn. Some people really just stand out for particular reasons. And it could be the way that they come across. It could be the way that they've creatively edited something into their show. It could be the format of the show. It could be their voice. It could be their rhythm. It could be anything. And I'm just always trying to listen and pick ideas, bits and pieces from everyone, and then blend them into my style and, make them my own in a way. So I can't really single out one person that I would love because there's just so many great podcasters. There really are. Yeah. You're a great podcaster. I'm not just saying this, but I really love the way that you naturally create question, naturally flow, and it just, you can see that you do this a lot.
Yeah. The one thing I do in music is I like to listen to a song and pick out a single instrument and focus on that instrument for the entirety of the song. So the bass guitar, the piano, the drums, and just try to just pick out that and focus on that for the whole thing and ignore everything else. Because it makes me kind of fine tune. And when I play live, then I'm listening for the different instruments and knowing how to play with a group. In podcasting, same thing. I tell people when they're learning how to become a podcaster to go and listen to a bunch of shows about topics you have zero interest in, because you won't get caught up in the conversation. You have no interest in chickens, a podcast about chickens. You don't care about chickens. It's nothing you're interested in. You'd have no idea about chickens. But listen to the host. Did you like the intro? Did you like how they introduced their guest? Do you like how they closed the show? Did you like that question? Take the stuff you like and then move to another podcast. Listen to it and just pick out the things you like and start building this idea of what a good podcast would sound like for you. And then when you get on to look at the artwork, just start scrolling through all the different things. And whatever catches your eye, like the cartoon you have for yours, whoa, what's that? I like that. Okay, why did you stop? So you like something, the color, the cartoon that you have in your artwork, something caught your eye. Okay, remember that. Take a screenshot or do something to keep that and then do it again. Start scrolling and go, oh, I like that. And then those are the things you're going to build into your brand and your colors and look for your show because it caught your eye. It worked. So just do that, like you said before.
100%.
Just take from people and learn from other people. It's a great way to start.
Yeah, I have a little, I do that with my content in general. I have a little notepad on my iMac, on my iPad, on my iMac, my MacBook. And every time I see anything or anything, I do anything, I put it in my little notepad and I've got a whole reservoir of content and ideas to draw from every time I need one. So I'm always building things and making notes and because, do it as you go. So you don't have to sit there and think, oh, what am I going to do today?
Yeah. I think that's what we need to do in life.
Yeah.
That's how I help define my content. It's kind of like that article of clothing where everything sticks to it. I have a dog, which is making noise right now beside me, but all of his hairs stick to me. Like I'm always picking these hairs off. Like, how did that get on my shirt? I think life needs to be like that, where things just stick to you. A story, an example, a book, a podcast, something sticks to you, a movie, a line from a movie. It's like all these things that just attract themselves to you. And then in the future, you're like, oh, I'm going to use that. Or, oh, hey, this is interesting. All these things kind of feed together and they become part of you as you build your content. So let things stick to you. I think that's one of the things.
And ask yourself, well, why? Why are you so attracted to that? Because you can learn a lot just by that, diving deeper into that process. Well, why do I like that so much? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? And you really learn about yourself and about how you can execute better in life through that process.
Yeah, it's always about learning. That's what I think for a lot of podcasters is to encourage them through this podcast, through your show, is we're just here to help you learn and to encourage you to keep going. There's a sea of information around how to do this. And I think the more voices that come on the show, different perspectives, different opinions, will help some people to make a decision. I don't think there's one voice who can teach us how to do this. I think it's a mixture of everybody's feedback, input, things that have worked, things that haven't worked. Right? We are always experimenting and tinkering and trying to make our show just a little bit better than last week. Right? So
yeah, exactly. And that's why I find it's really like a complex of science and art together. There's a science behind it to a degree. There's a technique behind it. You know, from how you might set up things, or how you might do some audio work, or how you might have an intro body and an outro. But then there's so much creativity and art and spontaneity and personalization in that process. It's a beautiful marriage. And I think that's the thing to embrace as well, is learn the structure, but also make it your own and have some fun with it.
On your website, Darren, I see you have your proven 3 Ps of podcasting formula.
He's stalking
Preparation, production, and promotion. Now, I don't want to give away the whole thing, but can you give us an idea of what you cover in those 3? Because I think people listening could really benefit from your wisdom here.
Yeah, my pleasure. So that's what I call my 3 Ps of podcasting. And that's how I think of my podcasting journey, is that everything is done from a preparation point of view. And preparation can be how you prepare yourself, how you prepare your guest, how you prepare the show, how you prepare the environment that you're shooting in, how you prepare everything about that podcast. Then I talk about production, how you produce things from an audio and a video point of view. What tools can we use? How can we outsource things? What can we use in terms of AI? Video versus audio, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many arguments and so much discussion there. And then third is promotion. And that's really one of my most passionate areas, because just like a website or just like anything, you don't want to be the world's best kept secret unless you promote what it is that you do. And a great way to do that is to get on other people's shows like this. But unless you promote your show and promote what you do, then nobody's going to know about it. And what's the point of that? You know, if you're creating something great for the world, you got to get it out there. So promotion is really important. And I talk about promotion from a social media point of view, from a traditional marketing point of view, from a community point of view, collaboration point of view, whatever I can think of in terms of how to get that, your message and your branding and what you're giving, what you've created out there into the world. So they're my 3 Ps in podcasting, and I really think that they all go together. You can't have one without the other. You need 3.
I like it. Talk about the website again, Darren, because I want to send people to you to work with you and be a part of your world. Tell us a little bit more what we're going to find when we come to your website.
Very gracious. So on my website, there's loads of different things. There's free resources, loads of booklets that you can download. There's courses, there's blog posts, there's videos, there's my podcast episodes in audio and video form, loads of other content that you can jump on. So feel free to jump on. It's just suspendedanimation.com.au. And it's a great little story behind that word.
Oh, I gotta know. You're not letting you away without telling me that story.
I thought you might. So when I started working, I was working as a photographer, and I still do a lot of photography work. And I bundled this into my photography brand or media brand. But my uncle always used to use the phrase, still uses the phrase, suspended animation, when somebody's kind of just like a deer in the headlights or not quite sure what's going on. And I said, what a great name for a photography business, because that's pretty much what it is. you're suspending animation. It's a frozen still. So I thought, what a great term for my photography brand. So I called it suspended animation. And this is kind of a derivative of that. So I've just kept it all under the same brand, Suspended Animation Podcasting. So there's a great story there. And people always think, oh, Darren, you do animation. I said, no animation. It's podcasting and photography. But it's a good story.
Okay, I got to ask, the artwork for your podcast, where did you get this from?
Yeah, a big shout out to a lady in Sydney. Her name is Dani Vitz, DaniVittz. If you Google her name, Dani Vitz, she is an incredible artist. She does live caricatures in conferences and workshops, but she'll also gladly do a caricature for you in digital form. So you just ring her up or you say, Dani, here's a photo. Can you do a caricature for me? And she'll do it for you and send it to you. And she does a bit of animation now as well. Like, she's really, really good. Great artist, and she's a joy to work with. So Dani Vitz, check her out. If anybody wants a cool caricature, she's really good.
Wow, it is great. I love it. It's so good. It looks just like you. I'm like looking at I have it up on my screen. I'm looking at the picture. I'm looking at you. I'm going back and forth. I'm like, this is perfect.
And all I did was give her one photo and bang. I said, wow, that's cool.
All right, Dani, you're going to get a lot of emails from people, just so you know. We'll make sure I have a link for her as well in the show notes so people can reach out. Excellent.
Just great.
As we go, Darren, thank you for your time. Any last closing thoughts for a new podcaster? Do you have like 3 tips for a brand new podcaster who hasn't even started yet? They're here because they're interested. They don't know what to do. Got 3 things they should do right off the top?
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, if you're going to jump into the podcasting space, think of it as a long-term journey. It's not a one-stop, thank you, bam, 10 episodes and you're done. It's going to be a long drama, a long journey, and you got to love it. So definitely think of it as for the long term. Second one is, as you mentioned today, prepare a little bit. Look at what other people do. Do a bit of research. Think carefully about your target market, what you want to achieve, who you want as a host, who you want as a guest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the third would be get good at promotion. Because if you're not going to really dedicate a bit of time to learning how to post-produce and leverage content and repurpose content, you've got all this great content reservoir that you're sitting on and you do nothing with it. That's my biggest issue with podcasters and guests, is that they sitting on hours and hours of great footage in video and audio form, and they might release it once and it's gone. It's crazy. So you've got to find a way to keep getting it out into the world, because there's new people looking at you all the time. It's new to them. So you've got to keep coming back and repurposing and re-gifting all this great stuff. So those 3 things I would really say.
Outstanding, Darren. Outstanding. I'm so glad we connected through Podmatch. This is great. And the fact that you have time to do this and share with us your wisdom and knowledge. Again, I hope many people come find your site and reach out to you for help. I really like how you show up in this world, Darren. It's exciting to connect with you, and I hope that we can chat again in the future, have you back in the future as a recap and get an update from you and as things go on.
And what I would love to do is have you on my show and get a little bit more information from you as well. So I'm going to send you an email, and I'd love to come on my show, and we can continue the conversation.
I love it. And if for those listening at home or wherever you are, that's how you do it. That's how you build community. You reach out to people and have a great conversation with other people in the space. Build a bridge. We're all here to help you. Darren's here to help you. I would love to help you. You're not alone. You're not having to figure this out by yourself. Instead of spending hours and hours Googling how to do this stuff, reach out to someone doing it. And I'm sure Darren would stop what he's doing just to talk to you and spend time with you. So, Darren, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really, really did. Thank you so much.
Excellent, everybody. All the information is always in the show notes. Make sure you reach out to Darren. Let him know you heard about him here. When you go listen to his show, give him all the ratings, give him all the love, do all that stuff, and tell 5 people about Darren's podcast at the same time. Darren, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you again.
Hey, thanks for being here at the end of the podcast. This is just for you because you're still here. Thank you for your support for the podcast. Thank you for listening to the show, sharing it with other podcasters. Maybe somebody you know is thinking about starting a show. I would love for you to say, hey, wait. You should go check out the How to Podcast series. It's got everything you need. And Dave as well is included. You get one free Dave with the How to Podcast series. I'm included with it. So kind of a bundle thing you get. To that point, mentioning it in the podcast, definitely want to remind you here at the end, there's a link in the show notes. Starting it this summer, I'm working through this. It's a way for us, you and I, to have a conversation around podcasting. I want to help you. And I've been doing this for people who listen to the show now for almost 3 years. And I just haven't been promoting it as a thing. So I'm now promoting it as a thing. I want to spend time with you. I kind of would love to hear your voice. We're going to jump on Zoom together. We're going to talk about your podcast. You get time one-on-one with me, 30 minutes in my calendar, completely free, no strings attached. You don't have to buy a blender or a vacuum or none of that stuff. No. Just us. I just like to help you. And whether you're thinking about starting a show or you have a show, you want to grow your show, whatever it is, I'd love to meet you, talk about your struggles, your questions, work together. And I am eventually developing this into more of a coaching program for podcasters. But I'm starting with my best friends first, for free. So if you're interested, you listen to the show, and I appreciate you. Link in the show notes. Let's get together and talk podcasting, okay? You and me. Let's talk. Let's talk soon. See you. Thanks.